As our time in the Easter season is drawing to a close, and over this weekend we will begin our celebration tomorrow evening with the celebration of Pentecost, we are reminded continuously in the liturgy of the Word about the challenges of what it means to follow Christ. As you listened in the first reading that's taken from the Acts of the Apostles, you find out the cost that it's going to cost Paul. Paul, at the same time, earlier in the Acts of the Apostles, praised himself that he was a Roman citizen. And that meant is that he could not, at the same time, be tried by just anybody else within the context of life, even though they tried to do that. That the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the others that were against him in yesterday's reading, at the same time that he had succeeded in splitting, only at the same time became instruments of where ultimately he would end up. And that would mean that through Festus and the like in the conversation here today, that ultimately Paul will wind up in Rome, and he will die a martyr's death there. And it somehow we're told is that he has an inkling of that continuously in his letters, but also, as Luke lets us know in the Acts of the Apostles, that the cost for him is going to be everything in his life. The same as we listen to John's gospel, the cost at the same time to Simon Peter is going to cost him everything in life if he truly at the same time has found the one that he loves. Consider for a moment this gospel pericope. Pericope simply means a section of the gospel that we read in a liturgy on a daily basis. But consider it. It doesn't translate well into English. Because if you were part of the original group that had heard this gospel, you would have seen in the Greek that it would have been written in, and published in, and at the same time in the Aramaic that it would have originally been spoken of, the word love would not have appeared 3 times as a simple word. In fact, in the scriptures, there are 4 different words for the word love. And they are all utilized at the same time in this conversation. But one of the most important things that any of us ask of another in a relationship is, do you love me? Every little boy or girl asks their parent that at some time, usually when they want to flip a guilt trip onto their parents that they've been caught into something that they've done wrong. And think, do you love me? You wouldn't punish me. Be threatened. Or at the same time as we grow older and we look in the context of life and we're looking for intimacy and that within our lives to be able to share in something greater than just ourselves. We look outside of ourselves. One of the most popular questions you will ask somebody else, the thing is, do you love me? You know in your own imagination what you're hoping the other person might say. But in a healthy relationship, it's a great question to ask, do you love me? When Jesus asked the question in John's gospel, we're told by tradition that he's asking about just at the same time that Peter denied him 3 times. And at the same time now, he's asked 3 times is, do you love me? That's only part of the tradition. The thing is that you hear is in the pericope that Jesus just celebrated breakfast at the shore of the sea. The thing is with his apostles and his disciples. He had shared with them fried fish. He had shared with them a meal. But he was already resurrected from the dead. Gives you new insight into how we look at the gift of the resurrection. But when he asked, do you love me? He asked the word, are you willing at the same time to journey with me in all things? Do you trust me completely in this relationship? That everything that is about you, you're willing to commit to this relationship. When Peter answers the first time and says, yes, Lord, you know that I love you, he doesn't use that same word for love. He uses the word for buddy. You're my chum, my buddy. We go to baseball games together, we play football, we get along, we can talk about the same things, we can gossip in the same way. Jesus turns again and asks the question again, and he stays at that high level. Do you love me with everything that is part of you. This time, Peter climbs the ladder just a little bit. He says, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. But he goes to a level at the same time is that, yeah, I think you're a good guy. I think you're the best one that I can follow. But that's all that it goes to. It's interesting in John's gospel then is when Jesus asked the question the third time, the word that he uses is the word that Peter first used in the Greek. Do you love me enough to begin this relationship as buddies, as pals, as people that are willing to share? In other words, I'm going to dip down to where you're at, that you might be raised up to where it is that I am at, and that together something more is going to happen on your journey of life. Each time that conversation goes on, if you notice, he places a responsibility onto Peter. Your life of love is not just to sit in church all day. Your life of love is at the same time is to be able to do something. Feed my lambs, feed my sheep, take care of my brothers and sisters, as I at the same time with them will help you to grow into the love that I really desire for you at a level that right now you don't fully understand, but one day you will.